Hi, and welcome to Time Equation, YouTube channel of a watch collecting aficionado. On it, I talk about watches and I showcase my personal collection. Today, we're talking about the fear of missing out. Regardless of when you start your own watch collecting journeys, you're bound to be missing on a few spectacular pieces of the past. And if you want to purchase your watches directly from authorized dealers, to have a peace of mind that the warranty will cover any factory defects, you just might be out of luck for an older model. The great piece you like might have just gone out of production, and your preferred way of buying watches might no longer be viable. This is true for any point in time you start to collect watches, and it is simply unavoidable. But some models have just been recently pulled from production, and therefore could still be found with some ADs, complete with their factory warranty. Should you find yourself looking at one such piece, my suggestion is to pull the trigger as fast as you possibly can. The watch simply isn't coming back to production, and if you really like it, you should go for it. Or at least, that was my thought process when purchasing this Breitling Avenger Bandit. Launched in 2016, just before Bezel World, this all-rounder utility watch was a welcome addition to the Breitling lineup. But it wasn't until sometime in 2019 that this watch caught my eye, and by the time it managed to do that, it had already been pulled from the brand's website, signaling the end of production for the model. Fear of missing out kicked in just as soon as I saw it at my AD, and while I didn't purchase it on the spot, it didn't take long for it to be added to my collection. Breitling Avenger Bandit, the perfect all-arounder watch. Made completely out of titanium, with a reliable and robust movement, this watch can take a beating, and it can still walk out worry-free from any jeopardy you put it in. If you have multiple watches in your watch box, the Bandit will be looking out of it as a puppy, always ready to be taken out to play, work, or just explore. And with the functions packed within, it is definitely a tool watch for any kind of a job. That's why there's plenty of enlisted men that pick it as their tool of choice. The watch itself is massive. Its diameter is a whopping 45 millimeters, and it is definitely making its presence known on the wrist. Not the largest watch in the Breitling catalog by any stretch, but a relic of a time when massive pieces such as itself were all the rage. Fitting for something that's durable and made to do a job. Though, being large doesn't mean heavy. If this Bandit was made out of steel, it would definitely be a workout to wear. Titanium, however, is a lighter material, significantly so. And if you were to compare the Avenger models by weight alone, the ranking from most to least heavy would be steel at the top, titanium in the middle, and bright light at the bottom. Its titanium case is executed in satin finish all around, with no shiny surfaces anywhere on it to attract scratches. It has a strong but beveled edges, and that makes it a more comfortable wear. Sloped lugs on both ends help it wear a tiny bit smaller than it actually is. But its lug-to-lug distance is still making it unfriendly towards small wrists. It is definitely the upper limit of what I'm comfortable wearing myself. It has a fairly tall case as well, so when you put these factors together, the diameter, the thickness, and its weight, you get a watch worthy of being called a superhero. It is big, wears broad, and looks masculine. The sign crown is a screw-down crown. It's protected from being sheared off on impact with a chunky crown guard. Both the crown and the chronograph pushers are nicely textured, with a Breitling classic waffle style that allows for easy grip regardless of how sweaty, oily, or dirty your hands might be. Ultimate utility and ergonomics before aesthetics. Not that it doesn't look amazing, on the contrary, but it is a different kind of beauty. It is more a man surviving in the woods, and definitely not a tuxedo kind of a watch. Obviously, it is a chronograph, and this one can time events up to 12 hours in length. But its unidirectional bezel, made from titanium, is also a timing one. With the bezel and the chronograph combined, you can time 2 events in once. The bezel markings are carved in with Breitling signature rider tabs on the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions. The top of the bezel is also a rider tab, but with a loom bead insert for ease of legibility in low light situations. The entire bezel is fixed with screws onto the watch, and that makes it secure and protected from being knocked off from the watch. Rider tabs make it easy to grip the bezel, and with 120 clicks, the bezel can be used to time events with higher precision. Being a unidirectional bezel, it can also be used for diving. That pairs nicely with the 300 meter water resistance this watch has. Moving on to the dial, Gray as the rest of the watch, it offers great legibility. Our markers are lume dots, with the triangle lume on the 12 o'clock position for orientation. The hours themselves are easy to read, as they're executed with a large font Arabic numerals. There's very little doubt as to what time it is with a dial as utilitarian as this. On the outside of the minute track, there's another way to measure time. The numbers start from 100 at the 12 o'clock position and follow in 10-unit increments all around. These are used to measure the time decimally. That way an hour is 100 units of time, and not the 60 minutes we're used to. Interesting detail, but questionable from the practicality standpoint. At the 3 o'clock position, there's a date window, and next to it, the Breitling wings logo. But there's more than just the wings on the logo. There's an anchor as well, which is fitting for a watch that feels just as home if you're parachuting or diving. The hands are nice and large. They offer great contrast against the dial for legibility. They are even satin finished themselves to prevent reflection when used outdoors. With a considerable amount of lume applied, they are easy to find in the dark. Chronograph Seconds hand is special and easy to differentiate. With its red tip, it finishes the whole gray-red design aesthetic. The dial sits behind the anti-reflective coated sapphire glass. The sapphire is scratch resistant, and the AR coating makes the crystal glare proof, as it reduces light reflection and makes the dial legible even under strong lights. Since the coating is blue, it can sometimes make the dial appear as if it was made out of a different color, but that is rare and depends on the angle you're looking at the dial. On the back side of the case, you'll find a nice utility treat. Unit conversions table that lets you convert liters into gallons and pounds into kilograms. Quite useful for joint deployments with non-metrics folks. Breitling certainly had servicemen in mind when making this watch. Inside the case, you'll find Breitling's B13 movement, slightly modified version of the Valjoux 7750, sturdy movement with a long history of use in various Breitling models. It beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour or 4 Hz. It is an automatic, but its rotor only allows it to be wound in a single direction. That gives the watch a charming effect people usually refer to as the Valjoux wobble. If the rotor mass moves just right, the entire watch starts to vibrate slightly. It is noticeable and it is audible as well. Some people don't like this movement quirk. Personally, I adore it, as I think it gives this movement character. Setting the date can be done with a quick set function, but before you do, you really want to read the instructions. When the crown is pulled out in a second position, when the crown is pulled out once, you can set the date by rotating the crown away from you. However, you should never do that between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. That is the time when the automatic date change mechanism is engaged, which is the lever within the watch mechanism. That lever can be sheared off if you were to use the quick set function to change the date manually at that time. If that were to happen, the watch would stop changing the date automatically, and you'd have to take in your watch for a service. Regardless of this little quirk, this movement is the perfect choice for the type of watch this Bandit is. Finally, the strap and the clasp. The strap is made out of comfortable rubber. It has to be cut to fit your wrist size, and I find it to be just a bit stiff when the rubber is cold. After it gets warmed up on your wrist, it starts to follow its curvature quite a bit better. It is raised a bit to allow the skin to breathe. On the top side, you'll find a textile material instead. It's threaded and it gets pulled out as you wear it. As the strap ages, it gets a wonderful wear and tear look, well suited for this type of a rugged watch. The clasp is made out of titanium. Twin push actuation to make it open. Feels very secure on the wrist and it balances the watch weight nicely. Unless the strap is horribly fitted, the chance of having the watch roll over your wrist is non-existent. Inside the clasp, there's a pusher you can use to make fine adjustments to strap length. This is well executed and you can compensate for wrist expansion with ease. This Bandit is a complete package. If you spend any kind of time outdoors, if you do sports, or if you're enlisted, this watch will not let you down. Regardless of what the job is, the Bandit will get it done. You can get dirty with it, you can bang it around, and it is still going to get up and keep running. Any scratches you get on it are just reminders that this watch has been there with you and got you through it. This is a fantastic watch, and missing out on the experience of owning it would have been a huge mistake for me. Following this Avenger, my collection grew rather quickly. Every few months I'd buy a new watch that was different from the last. Today, my collection stands at 12 pieces. each with its own story and a set of quirks. I invite you to follow my watch collecting journey by subscribing to my channel. That way you'll get notified and discover the watch I've chosen next. Until then.